Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do my functional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call.
Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call podcast. I am Melissa Deely, your host, and I'm very excited today to bring you my guest, Jenn Trepeck. Welcome to the show, Jenn.
Thanks so much, Melissa. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and let me just introduce you a little bit to the audience, and I'm going to have you share your story. Jenn Trepeck has been described as a force of nature in the wellness space. She's been recognized as one of Podcast Magazine's 40 Under 40, nominated for the 2022 International Women's Podcast Award for Visionary Leadership, and won Earworthy's first independent podcast award for Best Health Podcast in 2024. And that's just a tiny little snippet of what Jenn's story is. And now she's got her program, Salad with a Side of Fries. That's her podcast. And I love that name. And Jenn, I'm just going to have you share how you got to where you're at today with all of these wonderful accolades and how you serve the world, because I think it's absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction. So my background's really business and marketing. I went to business school at the University of Michigan. I moved to New York after growing up in Michigan and going to Michigan. And I came to all of the wellness stuff through my own saga, right? I call it a saga because,
yes.
Right. As so many do, but everybody's like, oh, my journey. I feel like the word journey doesn't do it justice,
Right.
And
too gentle.
Right. And, for me, it was a lot. I grew up a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 80s and 90s. And so it was every fad diet under the sun was in my home, So I sort of joke that there isn't a diet out there that I haven't done, my family hasn't done, or we don't know somebody who's done it. And, growing up, I ate healthy foods. I was a dancer. I didn't really have to think about these things all that much until between high school and college. And it was the first time I wasn't dancing most days. And so I had to think about, where movement was going to come from. And food impacted me differently. And my hunger was different. And there were all sorts of things. And so I felt very uncomfortable in my own skin as these things were changing, and I was trying to figure all of this out. And of course, like so many of us also, I'm a recovering perfectionist and all of these things that were sort of tied into all of that. And so when I started to gain weight and I was experiencing all this, I was like, okay, I know what to do because, I watched this around me my whole life. And I tried every diet under the sun, gaining and losing, living on that roller coaster, the physical and emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
And I graduate, I moved to New York, and I knew that I didn't want to work for somebody else for the rest of my life, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
As so many of us, we figure out what we don't want before we do what.
Exactly, yes.
And basically, worlds collided because I learned about the curriculum that I based my entire practice on, and it completely changed my life. The only thing that allowed me to say I'd kick my food issues. And I felt like it was the nutrition education we're all supposed to know and no one ever taught us.
And it should be taught in school. I know. Yeah.
Right. And, that's a whole can of worms, right?
Yes.
But it got me thinking of like, well, why isn't this what we learned? And how did all of those things come to be? And everybody deserves this information. And so I said to myself, okay, this is my thing. This is what I'm going to do outside of my full-time job, to pay it forward and help people help themselves with this knowledge.
Which is why you're here, because that is entirely the whole theme and impetus behind this podcast. So thank you for being here.
Perfect. Yes. And so I know it's like we're so aligned. I'm, thrilled. Okay. So I started health coaching on the side of my full-time job. This was late 2007. So this is before health coaching was known. Mm-hmm. It was before side hustles were even a thing. And I built my health coaching practice on the side for 12 years. July of 2019, I left my full-time job and launched my podcast, Salad with a Side of Fries, frankly, more because I don't know what to do with free time, than anything else. But really, it has become such an integral piece of everything I do to serve the world with this information. So I work with clients one-on-one and in small group cohorts, and then also have the podcast. And I also implement revenue generating wellness programs in doctors' offices, because wouldn't we all like to see more doctors understanding and integrating true wellness care into their practice?
100%. And the way the model is right now, they simply don't have time. Right. Even if they had the knowledge, and they're not taught this in medical school any more than it's taught in elementary school or high school. And they don't have time because they're getting, between 7 and 15 minutes with a client. And that's not enough to explain and educate, which is what the basis and foundation of this is for people to have the knowledge and understanding. Because when we understand the why, then we can take action and stick with it.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Beautiful. I love that you're doing that. And hopefully that starts to shift that medical model a little bit, where doctors then refer to you and your programs, and that's something that, I don't know, is franchised across the country, et cetera.
Right, exactly. And we actually implement within the practice too, so that hopefully for all of you, if you want this in your doctor's office, share this with them, right?
Yes.
But we can give you access to this through your physician, through your doctor's office, so that it becomes part of the care, even more than, yes, referrals are amazing. And, we can level up from there too.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love that initiative. Thank you for doing that. Yeah. And that whole weight roller coaster that you were on, that so many people have been on or are on right now in their life. Just talk to me a little about what that is that people are getting wrong about that. And again, I know it's through no fault of their own. It's based on what they get in the media.
Right. Well, I mean, even thinking back, thinking back to what we were taught, right? I grew up on the food pyramid.
Yes.
For those of you who are a little younger, you maybe had the plate, right? Now the plate evolved a bit, but still didn't kind of take it really to where we want it to be. But think about that food pyramid where grains were at the bottom, right? It was really about economics and getting us to eat what we grow in this country. Not about biology, not about nutrition, And so if we take a step back and say, okay, that was actually their objective, right? Is that my objective? And if my objective is health, then, what is that? And on a similar note, the other piece that I think, has really led everybody astray is sort of twofold. On the one hand, it's BMI, right? When we go to our doctor and they tell us we are overweight or obese, they give us this, it's not even a diagnosis, but it becomes a diagnosis, right? But they give us this label. And the metric that it's based on is BMI is based on height and weight. And if you have a really fancy BMI calculator, they might take your age into account, right? But that total number on the scale includes your organs and your muscle and water and all of these other things. And by the way, muscle on your body is incredibly health supporting. So we might end up with a BMI that says we're, overweight or obese, but if that's a lot of muscle, we aren't at risk for all of the or a lot of the health challenges that are associated with those labels. So I also did some digging because, like you, I'm like, I gotta know why. I need to, So I went digging to find out where BMI even came from and why this is used as the metric, right? So it was originally used and designed to analyze populations over time. So basically, and it says in its founding, like not designed for individual evaluation. Yeah. So nevertheless, here we are, right? So, but it was like all the people in South America over a decade compared to
averages
all the people.
All of those people.
Right. Exactly. Compared to all of the people in Europe over the same decade, right? This is not about, Joe versus Jane at all.
No.
Right. And now recently, like as recently as January of this year, because so many of us have been having this conversation about BMI for so long, there's conversation about adding another element to BMI to sort of account for, body composition. So instead of actually looking at body fat percentage and using a scale, which I don't know why they refuse to do that, but there was conversation about using waist to hip ratio. But instead, to make it easier, it's like we Americanified, and I'm making up that word, but we like Americanified this whole like evolution of BMI to sort of mess it up. And so what was basically decided is that they're just going to add a waist circumference number. So an inch measurement for women, an inch measurement for men. And if you are over that, coupled with the BMI, then you are labeled, obese or overweight or whatever. And the other piece to the BMI part is eat less, move more. The concept or emphasis of calorie deficit,
yes,
I think has really led people astray.
100%.
Because
calories in, calories out, not to mention having to count all the calories in order to go through the calories in, calorie out.
Right.
And how stressful is that? And hello, under stress, can our body release weight that it no longer needs? No.
Exactly. Exactly. But I think, we end up in this situation where the implication of that concept is that all calories are the same. And so as long as you're eating less than an infant or toddler's worth of calories in a day, then you're fine. And the reality is we're not. When we cut out whole food groups, when we dramatically cut calories, when we focus on that calories in, calories out kind of piece, the number on the scale goes down for a finite period of time. Yeah. And then it stops moving. We rightfully get frustrated. We go back to old eating habits, right? And the number on the scale, yeah.
Or we cut our calories even further.
Right.
In an attempt to trigger the weight release again.
Right. Well, so what happens when the scale is going back down, right? When the scale is moving down, what we're actually losing through those approaches is water, muscle, and bone, which by definition deteriorates health, right? But then when we get frustrated and we go back to old eating habits, we have less muscle on our body to be burning that extra fuel, and we gain the weight back as fat. So we lose it as water, muscle, and bone, gain it back as fat. Lose it as water, muscle, and bone, gain it back as fat. So we might end up at the same number on the scale each time we go through that yo-yo pattern. But by body composition, we can be fatter at that higher number. And so it's really about understanding how to support the body in releasing the fat stores that it's been holding on to and giving it the nutrition that it needs to not just survive, but thrive and build muscle and do all of these other things.
Exactly, so that we can live at our best. Because we need the calories for the energy, for our mental energy, our physical energy, etc. And so, that needs to be factored in. How much energy are we exerting? As opposed to just straight looking at calories in, calories out. Now,
and it's the nutrients in those calories, like especially as we think about mental energy or our mood, right? All of those things, like it's the nutrients that we're getting that the body knows what to do with, right? And we know that because everybody knows, there's a difference between Skittles and grapes, right? Like,
absolutely.
Look at you, you're already ahead.
And you mentioned cutting out entire food groups.
Right.
And I know a lot of people that have been on the yo-yo and then they got sold the keto diet.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to let you share what happens.
Well, so it's interesting because for most of us, if you've been around the block a couple times, we've done keto before. It used to be called Atkins. It's basically the same thing, right? And essentially, the objective is to put your body into a ketogenic state where it is burning fat as its primary source of fuel. That inherently is not a problem, right? The challenges with it are, it is very unforgiving, right? So I make the joke that like you breathe wrong and you knock yourself out of ketosis. So It's unforgiving. If we are living modern lives that have very full days, odds are, right, sticking to a ketogenic diet that would keep your body in a ketogenic state is very difficult. It also deprives your body of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the preferred fuel of the body. So what can happen is that without carbohydrates, without proper fiber, we can end up with all sorts of digestive issues and cognitive challenges and energy challenges, right? A whole host of things. The other piece that I think a lot of people don't talk about is that when you are burning ketones, it creates a byproduct in the body that is a toxin. And so if we are not fortifying our detoxification pathways, it can potentially create more issues, and especially if we're trying to live in a ketogenic state long term. So I am a fan of potentially looking at keto for a couple weeks or a week or two here and there. But there also are pros and cons to that. I also think a lot of what happens with the everyday implementation of a ketogenic approach is that there's less of an emphasis on the quality of the fat and less of an emphasis on the quality of the protein. And that makes a tremendous difference in our health, especially long term. So, while we want something to be a magical answer,
I'm always saying here, there is no magic pill.
Right.
It takes time, effort, it takes work to focus on our health and choose to be healthy. However, it is so worth it because then we get longevity, we get movement well into our senior years. We don't spend the last 10 years of our life in a nursing home, not aware of who's even coming to visit us, etc.
Right.
And
Right. And I think, speaking of keto specifically, you don't have to do that in order for your body to release fat, right? A lot of these things sound like the answer because we don't have the information to be able to help the body do those things in a way that is sustainable and is reasonable for our lives. But it exists, I promise.
And we're going to get to that. And I also
Yeah.
want to add to your comment about keto diet and impacting gut health and elimination, et cetera, that I see a lot of those people that are struggling with those gut health issues. And when they reintroduce the healthy carbs that the body actually wants, because the body hasn't been processing for them for a while, the body's forgotten how, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then they think, oh, my body doesn't like them anyway. And they give up if they're not working with someone to guide them through and educate them on the process of reintroducing them to our body. So I always say to my clients, if there's a diet out there that is asking you to get rid of entire food groups, think twice. It might solve your issue in the short term. However, it's not actually getting to the root of your issue. And that's what we want to get to. So we have the long-term results. Right. So let's get to what people can do instead.
Yeah. The shortcut, because everybody wants a shortcut. Right? If you're a note taker, grab your pen or your phone, right? Write this one down. Fiber and protein, or really it's protein and fiber at every meal, make removing fat no big deal. Protein and fiber at every meal make removing fat no big deal. Protein.
One more time.
Clean. Protein and fiber at every meal make removing fat no big deal. So protein is clean, lean protein. I don't care. Eat what you like. Don't eat what you don't like. Animal, plant, something we've never tried eating before, whatever. Clean, lean protein, right? Fiber is vegetables and some fruit. A meal is really any time we eat. The only difference between a meal or a snack is how much we have at a time, and then therefore how long till we're going to need to fuel again. And then the other thing that you want a couple times a day is your quality fat. And one day I will figure out how to get the fat in the cute sentence. But until then, just remember the fat too. And for everybody, quality fat, like if you're like me and grew up when the no fat, fat-free craze, right? Fat is our friend. A serving of avocado is half of the avocado. I hear from people all the time. They're like, oh, I had a quarter of a sliver of a half of an avocado. And I'm like, a what? Like, eat the avocado. You're going to be fine, So protein, fiber, quality fat, every time we eat. Fuel regularly throughout the day. And your body will do two things that feel like magic, but actually aren't. So the one thing is that fueling this way keeps our blood sugar stable. And it turns out that whether we are burning fat or storing fat is a function of blood sugar. And we want to keep our blood sugar stable in sort of a middle range in order to be burning fuel and not storing fat. So by avoiding and minimizing dramatic highs and lows in our blood sugar, spikes and drops in our blood sugar, we do not contribute to the fat stores that we've been holding on to. And when we are consistent, keeping our blood sugar stable in sort of this middle range, like you don't want it to be like not moving at all, right? You want it to go up and down. We just want to avoid those extremes. But when we're consistent eating this way, your body will say, wait a minute, it's never a time of famine. All these fat stores I've been holding on to, I don't need. And it will release the fat that it's been holding on to. And with that said, if you're not holding on to excess fat, it won't release anything. But what we do see is improved metabolic health and improved overall health from keeping our blood sugar stable.
And that's the beauty.
That's your shortcut.
That's the shortcut. And that's the beauty of our body, is it knows what it needs and it knows what to do with what it receives.
Provided what it receives has nutrients,
Yes.
right? Our body does not know what to do with Pringles,
Or
right?
anything chemical
Right.
because it's not
Right.
natural. So the body knows what to do
Right.
with the natural whole food
Yeah.
diet. It doesn't know
Yes.
what to do with food that comes in boxes that's laden with sugars, that's laden with chemical toxins that are meant to extend the shelf life of that product on the store shelf so that the company can make more profit because it's not going bad 2 days into being on the store.
Right. And, listen, with that said, we all live in the real world, right? We live in a space where, yeah, we're going to end up eating those things sometimes. We just want those choices to be occasional rather than our staple, right?
Exactly.
And what can happen is that when those choices become occasional, they don't have the same impact on your system. Your body can handle the occasional spike in blood sugar, can handle, okay, I don't really know what to do with this. We're just going to let it go, right? We're going to get this out of the system, right? So it's not about never eating those things ever and, living in a bubble, right? We can still live in our lives and enjoy, things that we enjoy.
And I think that's a key piece is that we need to enjoy our meals and not be so stressed out about making sure everything's perfect. I love to share the 80-20 rule. If you eat healthy 80% of the time, your body can handle the 20% of the time where you're not. However, you're in celebration with other people and having fun and maybe not in control of the food. And it's maybe not the choice that you would normally make. However, you don't have to stress about, oh my goodness, what happens to me if I eat this? Right. Your body's going to be able to handle it.
Yeah, you're going to be fine. And as you were saying before, right, the stress of what we're worried that this thing is going to do to us is honestly worse than just eating the thing and moving on,
Exactly, which is why it's about how you're being when you're eating as well as what you're eating. Yeah. And it's not just the straight calories in, calories out.
Exactly.
So let's also talk about the chemical connection between the food that we eat and our mood.
Yes.
This ties in here beautifully too.
Yeah. So I know everybody has had that feeling of being hangry, right? Right? We're hangry. We're a little cranky, right? Because our blood sugar has dropped, right? Our body is saying, give me fuel fast. And when it wants fuel fast, it wants the most carbohydrate-laden things and the simplest carbohydrates, right? Because that's what's going to give us the most fuel the quickest way. With that said, when we think about other times, right? Hangry is just one scenario. But just as we were talking about how we have to give our body protein, fiber, quality fat in order to release fat stores, right, that it's been holding on to in order to survive. Our mood, our energy, our sleep are all a function of neurotransmitters, right? There are hundreds of these chemicals in the body. There's about 18 of them that are, sort of the major players. And you've heard of them, right? Like dopamine and serotonin and endorphins, right? Oxytocin. We've heard of a lot of these. What most people, I think, don't realize is that neurotransmitters kind of function in two sides of a coin, right? So when one is high, another is low, and vice versa. And that helps have this sort of balance of things, right? We don't have energy all day. We have energy at some times, and then we're relaxed and ready to go to sleep at other times, right? So they all work together. Our modern American lives create neurotransmitter imbalance, right? So what is it? We talked about our dietary choices, right? The more food that's coming out of a bag, a box, or a window, right? The more food that has a label that we have to read can create neurotransmitter imbalance. Toxins, whether that's in those foods or drinking alcohol or in our skincare products or our home cleaning products or in our furniture, right? Environmental toxins, being outside and exhaust from cars, right? There are toxins everywhere. But the more toxins that we are encountering and are potentially in our system, it can create neurotransmitter imbalance. If we are not eliminating, right? If we are not sweating, if we are not drinking enough water to get rid of all of these toxins, we can have neurotransmitter imbalance. We've also heard about the gut-brain connection. A lot of these chemicals are actually produced or stem from what's happening in the intestines. So any challenge there can create neurotransmitter imbalance. Genetics are certainly a piece, but I think the two that are universal that we don't really think about are chronic stress and sensory overload. And I am a sensory overload person with the best of them. You know, like I'm queen of the multitasking, right? I will watch TV and have something happening on my phone at the same time. Like, right? Like, oh, I am impatient. I'm not great in a line. I'm going to pull out my phone, right? But that sensory overload stresses the system. So all of these things that are just part of our everyday lives actually contribute to this neurotransmitter imbalance. And it shows up in a challenge around sleep. It shows up in, where are my keys? Why did I walk in this room? I picked up my phone to do something. What was that? Right? There's, I feel like a lot of times it comes up in like learning and memory, and especially for those of us in the perimenopause phase of life, that higher order thinking, that prefrontal cortex that allows us to manage all of the things and know what we're going to do now versus later. I see it all the time, right? A key factor in all of that is what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF. The more refined foods, the more saturated fats, the fewer omega-3 quality fats, we see a drop in brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And then what that means is that we have increases in metabolic disorder, anxiety and depression, right? Cognitive decline of all kinds, right? And so it makes the argument for saying, wait a minute, all of these choices are about so much more than the number on the scale. It's literally quality of life. It's how we show up in the world. It's how we show up to be around other people, right? It's how we're able to do the things that really make a difference in this world, because I promise you, it's not the protein and vegetables on your plate, right? That's not how we make a difference in this world. It's important, but it's really about what all of those things allow us to do.
Absolutely. And I love how clearly you've explained that. And on top of the fact that not getting the right nutrients or getting too many of the wrong nutrients is negatively impacting our BDNF naturally declines as we age anyway. Yes. So we need to be countering that as well in order to set ourselves up to be able to live our best version of ourselves in order to do what we are here on this planet to do with much greater ease and flow.
Right. Exactly.
And so all really, really great information. And you mentioned there alcohol too. And that's all, that people have. And so what does everyone get wrong about the impact of alcohol on their health and their waistline?
Yeah. If you're like me, right? And in my days of trying every diet under the sun, right? We were always taught the issue with alcohol is the sugar. The issue with alcohol are the empty calories, right? the empty calories from the alcohol, the sugary mixers, right? The food that we end up deciding to eat once we've had a couple, right? Not really. The real challenge with alcohol comes down to the liver. So the liver is the liver's primary job is detoxification. Now the liver missed the multitasking memo. The liver can only tackle one thing at a time. And so it prioritizes based on that which is the most toxic. Well, it's called intoxicated for a reason, right? So that alcohol takes the cake on the priority of toxins that it's going to process, which means that the liver will never get to the sugar, will never get to the environmental toxins around us, will never get to fat if it is working on that alcohol. It is why alcoholics, or one reason why alcoholics developed fatty liver disease, because the fat builds up in the liver because the liver never has a chance to work on anything other than the alcohol. So the liver's primary piece of the impact of alcohol. The other piece is sleep. I call sleep the ultimate biohack, right? Like if you are not sleeping well, it is a cascade of health effects.
Absolutely.
With that said, if you prioritize your sleep, it is putting you on the path of amazing things to happen, right? So we sometimes feel like we sleep, right? But it's called passing out when it's after a couple drinks. So we might sleep for more hours or want to sleep for more hours, but it's not quality sleep, right? So the impact of alcohol between the liver and our sleep creates a recipe for dysregulation across the body in a whole host of our systems, right? Because everything's connected. So that's the simple answer. I say to everybody, pick your battles. Alcohol may not be the battle you want to pick today. That's okay, right? Where we are and the choices that we're making today are different than the choices we might be willing to make in a week or a month or a year. And with that said, we get healthier each day we keep alcohol away. But you get to decide.
And that's exactly what all of this comes down to, is you get to decide. And when you decide to make the change, just as you said, Jen, start with the baby step, something that you know you can do, and build on that. Because when I look at how I eat now compared to how I ate 10 years ago when I was still in the corporate world and I had no idea about anything that I know about today, it's entirely changed. And I don't have any regret. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I love how I eat now. And I feel great how I eat now. And I'm 10 years older according to the calendar. However, I don't feel it.
Exactly.
Because I'm giving my body what it needs. And so it's just a matter of getting started. And tuning into information that you can rely on, that you can trust, that makes sense to you. And I know my audience, everything Jen has said here, you've heard from me before. However, we all need to hear things from different people at different times, because you might not have heard it from me. And now you're ready to hear it. And the way Jen explained it is exactly how you needed to hear it. And that's beautiful. And this information is so powerful because it literally will save your life. We have kids being diagnosed with fatty liver today based on what people don't know and the food that is convenient and readily available. And that is sad. Type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes. And then because so many children were being diagnosed with it, it got renamed to type 2 diabetes. So this isn't taught in the school system. We wish it was.
And now you know it's type 3 diabetes?
Alzheimer's, dementia.
Yep. Yeah. It just keeps expanding as we learn, or everybody else catches up to the fact that everything is connected to our metabolic health.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that you've come here and shared all of this wonderful information. And I have one last thing that I want to ask you is just to help the audience. How can they realistically improve their nutrient deficiencies? Do you have some quick tips or easy share to help people that are like, yes, I want to do this, and help them get started?
It's one of the things that we teach our kids and family program, right? When I'm working with kids and, you know, their parents, beyond the protein and fiber piece, it's also, especially as we focus on nutrients, how many different colors can you put on your plate?
I love
right? Like we've heard eat the rainbow before, but let's make it something that's a little more actionable, right? How many different colors can I get in every plate? The more colors, the better. The more colors, the more variation in the nutrients that we're giving ourselves.
And let's face it, when it comes to our vegetables, everybody knows we have green, we've got red, we've got orange, we've got yellow, we've got purple, we've got white, we've got brown. Like we literally do have all the colors of the rainbow.
Yep.
And most people are maybe having one vegetable a meal, which is one color. Right. So beautiful. I love all of this. Thank you so much for sharing here today, Jenn. And you teach it so simply and effectively so that people can understand it. And I know that's what you want to be getting out, is you want people to understand this so that they can literally go away and make it happen for themselves. And if they need a little support, then you're there to give them support through your courses and trainings. So I always love to ask my guests, what does don't wait for your wake-up call mean to you?
Start now, but beyond that, we're all, so many of us, even when we know this is important, right? We're waiting for lightning to strike. We're waiting to have that, motivation to want to get off the couch, to feel like a magnet is pulling us toward the broccoli, right? Like we're waiting for this thing to happen. And by the way, that's not really how motivation works, but that's a conversation for another day, right? So to me, don't wait for your wake-up call is just do the things now. Because as you said, we know that if we don't, it's just a matter of time.
Absolutely. And I also just want to say there, I believe you have on your finger an Oura ring, a gold Oura ring.
Yeah. So
I have one too.
Yeah. So this one's actually RingCon for anybody. So very similar, different, but RingCon, it's a little smaller and it doesn't have the monthly fee. Okay. So for people who are looking for an option, RingCon.
Good to know. And it's helping us track our sleep, among other things. It tracks a lot of things, actually. And for those that are struggling with sleep, as Jenn said, it is the cornerstone of your health. And having tools that help you measure your sleep so you can see what's happening and then be able to implement steps to shift that is really important. Because what we measure, we're paying attention to, right? And, I look at this every morning. I wear it in airplane mode so I'm not getting any EMFs. And I look at this every morning. And I'm very fortunate. I have amazing sleep because I focus on my sleep. And having a tool to help people do that is really powerful as well. So how can people get hold of you, Jenn, if they would like to work with you? And I know you've offered a very generous gift to the audience. Please talk about that as well.
Yes. So have a free guide for everybody called It's Not What to Eat, It's How to Eat. So we scratch the surface of it with the protein and fiber piece. So this really digs into it and also helps us understand how to then eat a Twix, eat the Skittles on occasion and have it not impact us the same way that it might right now. And then, please reach out. I love hearing from you guys. So all social media, I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JennTrepeck. Website is A Salad with a Side of Fries. Pick your platform, wherever, send a message. And then, of course, wherever you're listening, look up Salad with a Side of Fries and come join us over there for more of these conversations.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. And definitely go check out Jenn's podcast and her website and her beautiful free gift. Very generous. Thank you. And
thank you.
As we wrap this episode, is there any last piece of wisdom you would like to leave with the audience?
On some level, you know what to do, right? But it's just those little tweaks. And you don't have to figure it out alone. Work with someone like Melissa, work with someone like me, work with someone so that it doesn't feel like climbing Mount Everest naked and barefoot, because it doesn't have to.
And I wouldn't want it to, because on that note, I just read a book about climbing Mount Everest. And yes, definitely would not want to be doing that naked and barefoot. So thank you so much for coming, sharing your wisdom. And again, sharing it so beautifully in a way that people can truly understand how they can move forward and that it doesn't have to be difficult. And as you said, though, get the support you need, because we're not supposed to do this alone either.
Right.
So
thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thank you to my audience for tuning in each and every week and learning and caring about your health. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with others in your life who you know it will resonate with too. Because as we said earlier, it can literally save your life. Are you ready to up-level the power of your own mind? Because if you are, you will want to join us at the Amplify Your Mind Masterclass. It is a 2-day program where transformation meets action. You will discover how your unconscious mind shapes your thoughts, your actions, and your success. And you'll learn the 3 principles and how thoughts and mind and consciousness are impacting your entire life. We take you through 2 different hypnotic inductions for an incredibly relaxing experience, one on each day. And past students have said they learned more in these 2 days than they did in a 6-month life coaching course. So if you want to up-level your mind and do it with extreme efficiency, join us. No fluff, no guesswork, just real results. I will put the link in the show notes, and I'm gifting to my audience a massive promo code for our April class on April 15th and 16th. Using the code GIFT47, you will receive this class for literally that price, $47, for 2 days of personal growth, empowerment, and transformation. See you there.